On today's agenda, trousers. Today, since many of you have requested, I'm going to be breaking down the anatomy of a pair of trousers, studying its culture and construction and all the styles and stories it comes in and with. This is the second installment of the anatomy of a garment, where I, Victoria, an art director and self-taught sewist with a background in art history, explore the stories and craftsmanship behind our most classic garments. Let's begin. The trousers I'm going to be making are full-length, straight leg with a waistband, front fly zipper, slanted front pockets, and one single besom pocket at the back. A good pair of work-from-anywhere pants. For tools, we're going to need pins, needles, thread, bias tape, fusible interfacing, edge tape, scissors, small shears, a zipper around 15 centimeters in length, clasp hardware, tailor's hams, and, most importantly, fabric. I'm using a Japanese wool blend in medium gray, around 330 GSM. Wool is great at regulating temperature, is resistant to creasing and wrinkles, and has moisture-wicking properties, which means that when you start to sweat, the wool will pull that moisture away from your body and keep you feeling fresh and dry. The common denominator across all trousers are typically front and back panels, a waistband, a front fly, and pockets. It's in the material choice, the fit, finishing, and style choices for each of these elements that each pair gains its distinct genetic makeup. Here, I'm cutting out 2 front legs, 2 back legs, a pair of front pocket facings, a pair of front pocket bags, fly shield and fly facing, back besom pocket bag, belt loop strip, outer waistband, inner waistband. I'm fully interfacing all fly and waistband pieces and applying edge tape to the pocket openings and waistband edges to prevent any stretch. Instead of serging the raw edges using a machine, I'm going to be using bias tape to wrap them up. This will add a bit more bulk, but since I'm not adding a lining, this will help prevent any potential itch and will make sure the inside of the trousers look really neat. Ultimately, I want the inside to look just as polished as the outside. I'm binding down the vertical edges of the back leg, the center front and inseam of the front, and leaving the outer sides of the front for later, once the front pockets are in place. Some of you have been asking me about the patterns that I use, so I'm going to be releasing this trouser pattern as a beta on my Substack for you to download and try at home. If you like my films, then you'll definitely like my Substack. I'll be sharing patterns, coffee table zines, behind the scenes of all my projects. If you can't or don't want to, no worries at all. You being here, watching, commenting, liking already means a lot to me. Okay, back to our trousers. For formal trousers, there's usually a vertical crease down each leg that acts to draw the eye and elongate the legs. Starting with the back leg panel, I'm folding it wrong sides facing at the designated notches, then pressing down the folded edge. At the bottom opening, I'm pre-pressing the hems for easier sewing later. If the vertical crease gets a bit lost in the heat, just fold it over and press it again. Repeat this for all the other leg panels. At the top of the front leg panels, a multitude of pleat styles can be introduced. I'm opting for a single forward-facing pleat on either side. I'm pinning the pleat in place, then stitching it down in an L shape. Together, the pleat and the crease trick the eye to form one unified whole. On the back, a dart on each panel. Mark, stitch, then use a tailor's ham to open the curve up. While I steam the backside of my trousers, some highlights on its history and legacy. 3000 BC is the age of the earliest trousers, discovered in western China's Tarim Basin. 10th century. In Scandinavia, trousers, known as brays, are worn by the Vikings. 17th century. Knee-length breeches gained traction among the aristocracy of France and England. 18th century. The Industrial Revolution leads to the standardization of full-length trousers in Europe. 19th century. The bloomer, a loose-fitting, ankle-length undergarment, is popularized by Amelia Bloomer. 1930s, Marlene Dietrich champions trousers for women in films like Morocco. 1940s, during World War II, women's trousers become necessary as they enter the workforce. 1960s, inspired by Bob Dylan and Levi's, blue jeans are worn by youth as symbols of counterculture. 1970s, flared and bell-bottom trousers in the most vibrant colorways and prints are all the rage. Yves Saint Laurent introduces the pantsuit for women. 1980s, high-waisted trousers and designer jeans by the likes of Gianni Versace become popular. MC Hammer introduces his hammer pants. 1990s, the cargo pant comes to be. 2000s, sweatpants and joggers become mainstream. Today, there are more styles, sizes, materials, and options than ever. Where do we go from here? For now, we need some pockets. I'm attaching the pocket facing to the pocket opening along the front leg. Stitch, trim down to half, flip over, then give it a good press. Next, I'm going to be understitching this back seam right here. You can do this part with a machine, but I'm opting for some hand-sewn pick stitches to add a little bespoke touch. Once pressed to the wrong side, the pocket bag then comes to meet this pocket facing. Make sure top and side align with the leg panel, then stitch along that curved edge. For the raw edges, I'm again going to use bias tape to wrap it up. Now stitch across that top and side where the pocket meets the leg. With the slant pockets attached, we can now use bias tape to bind down this whole edge. For the back pocket style, I perused many a trouser and ended up consulting the Rose Alaric pant. A besom pocket is created by two folded fabric strips that form a welt, which creates the opening for the pocket and is sewn into the seam. It's both functional and decorative and gives the pocket a clean finish. After sewing around the pocket opening rectangle and snipping it open, minding those V's on either end, I'm kerfuffling everything through to the wrong side and pressing the edges flat. I mark a center point at either end, then fold in the facing fabric to form two welts of unified height. From here, I'm first stitching the V onto the layers below to fix the welts in place. Then, with everything down, I'm zigzag stitching on either end of the besom pocket itself. Once the seam allowance has been tacked down and the besoms look their part, I'm assembling the pocket bag and wrapping the seams with bias tape. With our single back pocket done, I can then combine the two back leg panels. Some of my favorite ready-to-wear pants that I've bought include these Yunya Watanabe dress pants that make me feel like a Harper's Bazaar photo editor in the 90s. These dark wash APC jeans for the put-together dog-walking look. These Nepenthes cargo pants that make me feel like an emo clown. And these Loewe pants that I got at a staff sale back when I worked at the brand. The front panels meet at the center front, made up of a fly shield, a fly facing, and a zipper. The zipper is placed facing up along the straight edge of the fly guard and stitched down. This duo is then attached to the center front of the right leg, right sides facing. Fold over and top stitch. Speed of snail, optional. On the other side, the fly facing is attached to the center front of the left leg, right sides facing, stitched down, then flipped to the wrong side. Next, I'm bringing this panel over to the other, making sure they're aligned at the top. Unite the zipper and the facing and stitch these together. Then fold the trouser legs together and continue stitching down the crotch. Flipping to the right side, I'm sketching out the fly's shape, keeping the fly shield pinned away at first. Stitching down until the marking begins to curve. Then, folding the shield back out and finishing the stitch down the curve with all layers beneath this time. A gentle press and our fly is done. A total of 6 belt loops will precisely adorn our trouser waistband. I'm preparing these now since I like attaching them while the front and back panels are still separate. It makes attaching them a bit more convenient. At the front, I'm attaching the belt loops right where the crease ends. At the back, I'm attaching a set parallel to each other along the center back. Then another set right at the side seams. These are then stitched down with a 0.5 seam allowance to allow for them to be easily hidden once the waistband is attached. At this stage, I like to hand baste the front and back together for a quick fitting. Once the fit is confirmed, I'm stitching down and along the basted lines, avoiding sewing over them to simplify the thread removal process later. To press the side seams open, I like to use one of these long and skinny Tailors hams that I made. It allows for precise pressing without affecting the lower layers too much. To assemble the waistbands, start by aligning the center back of both sets and stitching them together at a 1 cm seam allowance. Press seams open. Use flat bias tape to bind that bottom edge of the inner waistband down. Flip the bias tape over without folding the other side and pin it in place. Then, under the machine, I'm stitching in the ditch to secure the binding. Combine the waistbands right sides facing and sew along this long edge only. Press the seams open and trim the seam allowance on the inner waistband by half before bringing this over to the machine and understitching along the inner waistband. With the trousers right side facing out, pin the raw edge of the waistband along the trouser top edge. Stitch together with a 1 cm seam allowance and press seams upwards. At the waistband edges, fold the inner waistband upwards until it forms a little triangle and sits just above that outer waistband. Pin in place, stitch down, trim any excess fabric, then turn the waistband right side out, taking care to poke out those corners. Next, I'm using some contrast thread to baste the whole waistband in place, before then applying a manual rendition of the stitch in the ditch just below the waistband. The basting stitches can then be removed and everything can be given a generous press. Finally, proceed to attach any necessary waistband hardware. To complete the belt loops, I'm stitching them down again at the 1 cm mark below the waist, then folding down the top edge. Stitch, trim tails, and give them a good press. For stress points, like the front fly and sides of slant pockets, I'm adding a few extra stitches to reinforce them. Finally, time to finish the hems. I'm binding the bottom edge first, then folding along the pre-pressed hemline from earlier. Instead of using the machine, I'm going to use a hand-sewn blind stitch all around for a discreet finish. With that, and a final press, we are finally done with our trousers. Making any garment for yourself out of want and not need is such a modern luxury, which is why making a pair of trousers that you'll hopefully wear often and for a long time is especially grounding. Input was just an array of tools, fabric, pattern pieces, and a lot of steam. Output is a decisive garment tailored to your body, your way of life, personal preferences balanced with tradition. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of The Anatomy of a Garment. If you did, don't forget to subscribe, give this a little like. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!